The thing about Manzanar is that unless you live regionally, it is very difficult to get to. When they built the concentration camps, after all, they were trying to keep the Japanese Americans away from the general population. Manzanar is about 4 hours east of Los Angeles, on the other side of the Sierras from where the majority of Californians live. Even the closest towns to Manzanar are pretty small, and the Manzanar website is very clear that there's no town right there, that lodging and food are all several miles away. I live in Kansas City, so even with airplanes, getting to Manzanar takes a full day. I finally got my chance when my parents invited my family to come with them to Lake Tahoe, which is on the border of California and Nevada, if you're not familiar with it. I immediately got online, checked the map to see how close we would be to Manzanar. And when I saw that it was only 4 hours, I started campaigning for a day trip. Fortunately, my parents, my husband, and my kids were all just as eager as I was to see Manzanar and to go to the desert in July. At that point, I had been researching, writing, editing within these lines for over a year, so I knew a lot about the place. I knew it would be hot, sandy, windy. I had read tons of stories about degrading housing and bathing conditions, but experiencing it in person is so much more intense. The heat was hard to be in. It was so hot that some of us stayed in the air-conditioned car for most of our time there because it was just so intense. Manzanar is pretty close to Death Valley, if that tells you something. Since all of the original barracks were torn down after the war, what they've done is rebuild a couple of them, and then they've put markers out to show where everything used to be. I could not believe how close together everything was. And since there was no insulation or anything like that, I just kept thinking that it must have been so loud there all the time. One moment that really sticks out to me from my visit was going into the bathhouses. And I had looked forward to and dreaded this all at once, ever since I had read about open showers and how the residents just had rows of toilets with no partitions between them. So I went in there with my 2.5-year-old, and we went into the shower room, which is just a row of shower heads on the wall. And he gave me this confused look and said, "Mom, this shower is broken." There's many things that are hard about visiting Manzanar. It's hard to get to. It's a hard environment to be in because the weather is so extreme, and it's just a hard place to be emotionally. But it is so valuable to go and experience a taste of what life was like for the Japanese Americans and to learn from the mistakes and the trials of the previous generations.